Hi guys, and welcome to another stream with myself, Ray Qureshi. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for all the great feedback we got from Mr. Joshua Bull, FPL champion from the season before last, and the great guests just keep rolling. So why don't I bring him in? I'll introduce now Mr. Sujan Shah from @Planet FPL, and I think 7 other business endeavors. How are you, sir?
Bit of that. Very well, Ray. Thank you so much for having me on. And I've got my own guest. You've got a guest. I've got an intruder in my office up in the attic today as well. My son's decided that he wants to. Do you know what? You've got a young son as well, right?
I got twins, man. Yeah,
twins.
twins.
Okay, and obviously podding all the time. He's like, oh, you're podcasting and stuff. And he's like, I want a podcast. So for today I said, you know what, you can come, you can sit and you can join the party.
Absolutely. You know what? It drives up numbers when you got kids on it as well. That's what I found.
That's it, right? Pets and kids. Those are the two things that people get passionate about. So
completely. Yeah. Aaron, please, sir. You have a question?
Come on.
Okay. First, I never talk about Dad's podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Good. Grab a seat, little guy.
Okay.
Before we start, first of all, Suj, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. I really appreciate it. I want to say that I've been listening to Planet FPL for I think about 18 months now.
Okay.
And of course, YouTube is hooked to my Gmail, but I didn't even get my channel started. But the two of you inspired me, man. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you for that. And the reason is because not only do you look at FPL and football and are both very knowledgeable as well, but you're extremely entertaining. The amount of laughs I've had just from the pure chemistry the two of you have has really inspired me. So I'm in Charlotte's Web, buddy. I can't get out now. That's it.
I mean, it's really nice to hear. I'll be honest with you. We're going into season 5 this year for Planet FPL. It does the 4 years have flown by. It really doesn't feel like it's our 5th season of content for me and James. And the amount of content that we produce, like there's 10 shows a week, and probably at least 8 of them that the two of us are on. It's very hard to produce that volume of content if there isn't that kind of natural chemistry and entertainment and what have you. But it's not something that necessarily we knew would be there with episode 1, right? I always say to people that are like, oh yeah, success is so good or what have you. Go back and listen to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 because we were just starting out back then. You don't really know what's going to happen, but it's really nice to hear when people are like, oh, you inspired me to get into content and what have you. I'm like, look, do you know what? The space, the football space, the fantasy sports space is so big. There's room for everyone. Everyone's got their own audience. There's going to be people that gravitate towards you, that won't gravitate towards us, and vice versa. Just find your space, and it's just good that people are getting out and trying to make content and stuff. You know.
Yeah, if I may, before we get onto the main subject, I think one thing I really appreciate is you guys compartmentalize it still as a hobby. I feel like when I go on Twitter, it's the Twitter beef actually makes me laugh, I must say. Maybe I'm being cynical, but I just have endless laughs about it. He's so cute.
Do you know what he said to me? Do you know what he said to me, Ray? I didn't know we were going out live.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're live.
So he just said to me, he goes, Mum and Reese, my other son, are watching it live. And I was like, right. I didn't realize the other 2 of them are downstairs watching it live.
Well,
do you want to go downstairs and watch it with them, darling?
I actually said, do you want to watch the podcast?
Okay, cool. There you go. Do you want to go downstairs, darling? No, darling, go downstairs. Try and get rid of the guy. But yeah, you were saying that the Twitter beef and what have you.
Yeah. And I feel like you two, of course, it's extremely serious. Of course, it's a business for you guys. You're doing well. But I still feel it's based on enjoyment.
If it wasn't enjoyable, I wouldn't do it. I think that's one of the most important things to know, like putting in that many hours and putting up with the ups and downs that come with creating content.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy it, it becomes very difficult to keep going. So yeah, enjoyment is the number one thing for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about gaming YouTubers or sports or whatever it may be, right? Makeup tutorials, whatever it is that people get into. It all stems from enjoyment at the beginning.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, man. Well, that's a brilliant segue to who is Mr. Sujan Shah, because You're a bit of a myth sometimes, buddy. You do a lot.
if people find the answer to that question, if they could email me and let me know who he is, because sometimes I don't even know myself, man. Started out, I mean, work-wise, to start family, I've got my wife and 2 kids. One of them is 9, one of them is 7, and I think that's the center of everything for me is my immediate family and what have you. I'm not one of those people that needs millions of friends and people all around and what have you. I'm very comfortable in my small, close-knit group of friends and immediate family that I have. And one of the biggest things that I always say, my ultimate philosophy on life is that the only true measure of success is happiness. And that's what drives it, really. Like, just that nuclear is what really drives my happiness. But ultimately, I'm a glorified paper bag salesman. Right? I run a small business that sells carrier bags, tissue paper, paper bags, that kind of thing, to businesses all around the UK. And we also have an office in Germany and an office in Ireland. So basically, we sell a lot of paper bags for a living. And side by side with that, obviously, I have Planet FPL with James, which is obviously our podcast brand. And YouTube as well. We're producing shows primarily around FPL, but also Sky Fantasy. And we delve into the periphery of football as well. So if you're talking about the finances of football, being a business guy, that stuff interests me. Nostalgia. We dabbled a bit in Euro fantasy.
I'm so sorry to butt in, but the financial fair play topic that you covered in the research you did regarding Manchester City was riveting stuff, I must say. So I know what you mean.
The ironic thing is, we always say it on the show as well, though, nothing that we're producing content-wise in that space is new or not already out there. But we try and put it in I think we do a reasonable job of understanding our audience. So we take the topics, do our research, and just put it in a format that is digestible for our audience. Because I wouldn't want to take credit and say, look, we're not investigative journalists or we're not like journos in that way. We're just consuming other content and putting it in a format that works for our audience specifically, which is good. And side by side with that, I've got a small media agency as well, and a couple other bits and pieces. But primarily, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. And of course, season ticket holder and West Ham fan through and through.
Wonderful segue. I think also you have the Asian dating app.
Yeah, exactly that. That's probably a story for a meetup one of these days that we get down to. But mid 20s, I was just give me a second, darling. I was 25, 26, and a friend of mine approached me about buying a small singles events company in London. This is now going back to 2005-06. So it ran kind of speed dating events and singles events and what have you. And what could be better than being in your mid-20s single in London and having a singles events company? And that grew over the years. We then the whole plan with that was to launch a digital platform, so online dating and a mobile app and so on and so on. So that's in the pipeline in the background as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, me being me, because I work in operations, I obviously did some LinkedIn. It's okay, don't worry. By all means, by all means.
It's called Ray Qureshi. If you Google it, you might find it, Danny. Okay. All right.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of stuff on there. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Find it on YouTube.
As I work in operations, obviously I did a bit of research as well, and I was going to use your LinkedIn profile pic, but that's a cheesy smile search.
You know what? I've got the same profile pic on almost all social media platforms apart from LinkedIn, which has me with a smile and stuff. But yeah,
suited and booted, man. You looking
like
good.
It was a solid 5 or 6 years younger.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I think you and I could speak about life and philosophy for hours. I just feel we're quite comfortable, but we'll definitely do that in a meetup one of these days. For sure, absolutely. For sure. So, well, it's all about West Ham United. So how did what was the history of supporting West Ham?
So, I started supporting West Ham in 1990. So I was 10 at the time. And prior to that, I've said it on a few pods before, but maybe a lot of people might not know. I was kind of sort of a Spurs fan, kind of sort of. a Spurs fan. So I had two older cousins. So I was like 7, 8, 9 growing up. And a lot of my family, immediate family, live in and around the local areas. So summer holidays, Christmas holidays, half terms. Me and my cousins would all be in the same house somewhere, whether it's my aunt's house or my house or whatever. And they'll be playing football in the garden or whatever else. So I had two older cousins. One was a Liverpool fan and one was a Spurs fan. And they both used to give me beats every holidays. One was like, you're going to be a Liverpool fan. The other one was like, you're going to be a Spurs fan. They used to give me grief all the time. So I ended up veering towards Spurs a little bit because a lot of the other kids in the playground and stuff were Spurs fans. North London's where I'm at. I'm not East London where West Ham are.
Yep.
So the playground's predominantly Arsenal, Spurs. But at that time, there was a bit of Man United, Liverpool sprinkled in, as there always is now as well. Although nowadays, when you go in the playground, it's actually Real Madrid, Barcelona, and everything else.
Yeah.
But so I was drawn a little bit to Spurs. Italia 90, if you remember, was Gary Lineker and Gaza. And obviously they were at Spurs at the time, right? I think so. There was that kind of draw to Spurs, but it was the 1991 Cup semi-final, I'm going to say, against Nottingham Forest. And I was sitting at home watching it on my own. And I was only 10 or 11 years old. And we lost 4-0 or 4-1. I'm pretty sure we lost 4-0, to be fair. But all the commentators kept going on about was the West Ham way, and so on and so on. So I thought to myself at the time, do you know what? That's the football club for me. I don't care that we're rubbish. I don't care that we've just lost 4-0. That's the football club for me. And ended up supporting West Ham from that day onwards. But I'd say, to be fair, the first 10 years, I wasn't really particularly like that much of a diehard fan. Primarily because West Ham were rubbish and the playground, right? In school, I was the only West Ham fan. I didn't have any other West Ham mates. I didn't have parents that supported football. So I just kind of I used to follow them from a distance a little bit, I'd say, but I wasn't like, die hard. But the other thing back then was there wasn't wall-to-wall coverage of football. So for me, it would be I don't know why my parents buy and still buy the Daily Mail. It's been a habit since I've been a kid. All I can remember is the Daily Mail. But the Mail on Sunday was when I'd open the paper and look at the back and look at the league table. Like if we weren't even in League One or the Premier League or whatever then. It was then that I'd get the results and read the match reports and stuff like that. I didn't even get to watch West Ham much back then. It all started out then. And then I think when I went off to uni, like 99, 2000, with the boys down the pub and stuff, started watching a lot more football and became a little bit more diehard, would you say, then.
Did you have a player that kind of made you support West Ham? Because usually you get connected to a player.
He didn't make me support West Ham, but he's my favourite West Ham player of all time. No question, no ifs, no buts. Although Declan Rice is pulling at my heart a little bit now, but it was Julian Dix all the way, all day, every day. Julian Dix was the one that really pulled me in. So 92, 93, I'd moved schools. And you know how schools have a summer fete every year, summer fair or whatever, and there's all the little stalls. And for some reason, the games teacher at the time, Mr. Johns, I won't forget it, he decided that this summer fair, he was going to do a stall selling old football programs. So he was just selling them for 50p and 20p and whatever. I don't know where he managed to get a stash of like every football program.
Oh, amazing.
And he had about 40 or 50 West Ham programs littered from the last 2-3 seasons. And there was no other West Ham fan in the school, right? So I remember he said to me, look, for like 15 or 20 quid, you can have all these old programs, but in amongst the stack of programs was, and I've still got it, the 1980 FA Cup final when we beat Arsenal 1-0, and Trevor Brooking scored with his head, his only headed goal, the last time we won a trophy. In amongst this stack was this cup final program, last trophy we won. So I take your money, mate. But then I used to read the old programs.
Yep.
and look up the old players back then. That was what kind of built my connection with the club in a way, was like reading these old programs that this old games teacher sold to me. Probably ripped me off, but who knows now, you know what I mean? But yeah, and Julian Dix was the one that just the way he took penalties, just smash it. I used to love him. And then he was the one that was still my all-time favorite West Ham player.
Yeah, I felt
but
also played.
Declan Rice is pulling at my heartstrings at the moment, I'll tell you.
I think, first of all, Declan Rice, absolutely. But I think players like Julian Dix, as an 80s baby as well, like yourself.
Yeah.
The guys who played for the badge, when they kissed the badge, it meant something. You know, there was loyalty there, you know, heart on the sleeve, go full on. I feel that concept is being lost nowadays.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like Mark Noble's going into his final season with us.
Amazing. 20 years, right?
16, yeah. It's not quite 20 years. He joined the club when he's been at the club 20 years. Obviously, his professional career hasn't been 20 years. He's only 33 or so now, 34. But one club men, so few and far between nowadays. Those are your heroes, right?
Yeah. 100%. Fantastic, man. And well, I was going to ask who's your favorite current player, but you spoiler.
Well, thing is, I value hard work.
Yeah.
For me, it's like one of those things where I don't mind if you're not the most talented. I don't mind if you're not the most creative. I don't mind any of that stuff, but put a shift in each and every game, right? Whatever you do, like I tell it to my kids all the time as well. You don't have to be the best, and you don't have to be picking up trophies and winning or whatever, but I can't accept not putting in 100%. So for me, it's always been those kind of players in the engine room of a team more than the flair players that I gravitate towards. And Ricey for me is the one at the moment that's just doing it week in, week out. Hopefully still next season.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hopefully still next season, you know.
I want you to enjoy this video. And also you gravitate to a player you feel is closest to your personality and ethic, isn't it? I think that's just natural.
I mean, that guy just loves
Not
life.
that you don't have flair, Serge.
But... No, of course. But that guy just loves life. Firstly, he wears his heart on his sleeve, tells it how it is. Probably even not last season, but the season before, when we were struggling a little bit, probably was too open and honest. If you listen to some of the pods back then, James was saying like he's a bit naive to say after Sheffield United away that was a good point for us, for example. It's not the message that maybe people want to hear, but he was right at the time.
Yeah.
But when he's open, honest, but he's always got a smile on his face. He's always joking, laughing. You can tell that he just isn't taking life too seriously and appreciates everything he's got each day. I love that attitude towards life. So that's why I really, really gravitate towards him for sure.
Fantastic. Next part, really, something I'm sure you'll be happy to talk about is a summary of last season. So West Ham brilliantly finished 6th at one point, probably with 8 games to go. Well, mathematically you went far, but I felt like possibly come 32, 33 games, that kind of Champions League qualification running probably started to peter out, but still an absolutely phenomenal season. So just wanted a summary really of your thoughts and feelings after the summer.
It felt like the coming together of probably 3 or 4 seasons before that, even though the previous seasons hadn't been too good in terms of results and we'd struggled a little bit flirting with relegation. You could tell that after Moyes came in, the transfer strategy had changed a little bit to buying players that were hardworking and simple, like from the Championship and places like that, with Jared Bowen and Rama coming in and so on and so on. So it felt like the philosophy of the club was getting a bit of an identity, and that all came together last year. But it's funny when you look back at it. First day of the season last year, we lost to Newcastle comfortably.
Yeah.
Followed by a defeat against Arsenal, which was a game we should never have lost. We were playing so well for the first 60 minutes and then got taken apart. we did have a couple of good early results against Wolves and Leicester. I mean, scoring 7 goals. That they came a bit out of the blue, to be fair. Like after the first 2 results, we were quite worried. And then we played Spurs quite early, and they were 3-0 up inside 15 minutes. And you're thinking, what's going on here, right? But very quickly after that, we found a rhythm that was based on a solid 5-2-3-1 or 5-2-3. Sorry, with Rice and Souček, Masuaku on one side, Soufal on the other, Creswell, Agbona and Diop in the middle. Balbuena, sorry, to be fair, was playing more at the time. And then Antonio, Bowen, and Fornals up front. And Fornals and Bowen do a lot of good tracking back and hard work as well defensively. And then Masuaku, Creswell on the left and Soufal on the right were doing bits. And we just found a rhythm that worked so well. And we went on an amazing run over Christmas. And it really felt like that Christmas period we could trip up. But Moyes rotated the squad a little bit nicely. Everybody got a little bit of a rest. We picked up so many good results at that time. Not necessarily some of the greatest performances, but we kept winning games. Remember 1-0 away at Everton and stuff like that. You just think, you know what, grinding out these results and doing really well. At the end, I mean, we lost Rice towards the end of the season for quite a few games, just at crunch time. Antonio had his periods out as well. And that kind of sort of told, to be fair. But I can't knock it. Do you know what? I can't knock it. And here comes Europa League.
Yeah, before we get to that, I felt like it's taken the best part of about 7-8 years for Moyes to kind of get back that reputation and also get his foundations in place after Everton.
There's a club manager fit, right? You find why are some managers good at some clubs and not at others? They don't become bad managers. It's not that they don't understand football, but it's the fit of not just the club and the manager, but the players that they have in their squad makeup as well. And that's what sometimes falls apart. You need all three to be in unison for the pitch, the performance on the pitch to be good. And then you've got the fourth thing as well, is the ownership and the board and what have you. You need the club to be run well. And West Ham, let's not joke around, a banter club for a lot of people for so long because of the stupid things that we've done with our ownership. The Icelandic guys going bust so long ago. The stadium move wasn't necessarily received as well as it should have been. Some of the transfers we've made and so on, some of the managerial merry-go-round hasn't been. It's been a banner club because we've been underperforming for so long. But now I do feel like we have the right fit. Everything seems to be clicking nicely. So yeah, it was good to see Moyes find that rhythm.
Yeah, I was a absolutely huge fan of his at Everton, and I feel like he's finally got the time, patience, support that he's needed, and he's kind of buying like players of similar ilk he had at Everton. So some would say like Souček was like his Fellaini back in the day, you know, like players like that.
Yeah.
And Lingard was possibly his Cahill last season.
Yeah, I mean, well, Lingard came in and he did do well. He started really well and then kind of tailed off towards the end of the season a little bit, but I can't knock it. It doesn't look like he's coming back though next year.
We're not getting to that yet. Don't worry. We got a section before that.
But yeah, I think some people have said Souček's almost more like a Cahill, to be fair. But I think that Fellaini comparison is right. You know, yeah.
Okay. Well, before we get to Lingard bit, we have another part which you already mentioned before, which was fantastically West Ham have qualified for Europe. What are your expectations this season for the season in whole?
Relegation battle. I've been a West Ham fan too long to be able to be optimistic. Like even all through last season, game after game, result after result, and even when the performances were good, so you start building trust, right? You think, okay, I know how we're going to set up. I know that the players are going to put a shift in because I see it week in, week out. Even when I'm getting the evidence of a change in mentality and performance at the club, I'm expecting to lose each week. So yeah, it's very hard for me to be optimistic, I think. But if we put a shift in and play and work hard with the squad that we have the capability of beating a lot of teams. So The depth isn't there in the squad yet, although getting Areola was a good start. If we can, the talk at the moment is around Pereira. I'll be happy if we picked up Pereira. Tammy Abraham.
West Brom's Pereira?
Yeah,
Marcus.
Mateus Pereira. Abraham, Zuma, also players that I'd be quite happy with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do need to pick up a few more in a central midfielder. And then the likes of Ben Rama will get more minutes this season for sure. I think we could have a good season, but a few injuries could cause us problems. So we do need to make sure we pick up three or four more bodies. But I suppose I should be going in optimistic, but I'm still I find it hard. I'll be honest with you, I do find it hard to be optimistic. If we were to finish 6th, 7th next season, I think that would be a great season. Top 8 for me would be building on what we did last year. We managed to get into the top 6. Spurs, Arsenal underperformed. And so we had that opportunity and we took it. But I don't think they'll be anywhere near as bad as they were last year. I think Arsenal, particularly because they haven't got any European football, I think they'll be in a position to come back and do okay in the league. Spurs, so dependent on this transfer market. So
unbelievable, right?
Yeah, like losing Kane, all bets are off. Keep Kane and pick up a couple of other good bodies with a new manager. You never know, right? So, top 8 for me next season. And if we get through to like the knockout in the Europa, I'd be very, very happy.
But about the transfers, I feel like I've heard like nothing from West Ham apart from maybe the last few days in regards to the players that you mentioned. But could you possibly see no major signings until going into the last couple of days of the transfer window? Because
I don't think so.
The end of
I think
August.
They are working on things.
Okay.
I think they are working on things. So I do think Pereira, they'll probably get it over the line. If Pereira comes in, then you can definitely assume that Lingard's dead as a deal. I think that's definitely not going to happen, to be fair. I'd like to see Zuma. I was under the impression that Zuma was going to be part of a player plus money deal for the defender that Chelsea were picking up.
Kunde from Sevilla, but apparently Zuma turned it down.
Yeah. Fine. So if he's available, then I don't have a problem with that. We lost. We let Balbuena go in the summer, right? We didn't extend his contract, so we need one more centre back there. There's no problem with that. And Tammy Abraham, I think, will do a job at West Ham. I think he'll do 15, 18 goals a season. I'll take that all day long from Tammy Abraham. So
would it be in a 4-4-2? Do you think, or do you think Antonio might go wide? Or they might rotate because of Europe?
I think they'll rotate because of Europe. I can't see us changing the system, to be honest with you. We're either 5-2-3 or 4-2-3-1, depending on the opposition now. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, you mentioned Lingard, so I thought I'd bring some stats to you. So for those who... Are you able to see that all right? All good? Yeah, just about. So his record was absolutely fantastic. 16 appearances, he got 13 returns. And I feel like under West Ham, he completely rejuvenated his career in just 6 months, especially when you look at some of the stats as well. The only time I've seen him look so explosive was when he plays against my team, which is Arsenal, including moonwalking at the Emirates. And I was at that game, so not too happy, I must say. But if the opportunity were to arise, and let's say Manchester United say, okay, Moyes, you can have Lingard for 25, 30 million. For a 28, 29-year-old, is that something you'd entertain?
25, yes. 30, I'd have to think twice about. But at 25 million, I'd take it.
Do you need him, though? Because of the likes of Ben Rama and Lanzini, these guys
Rama, Lanzini, Fornals, Bowen. I mean, it's a packed kind of area that we have, especially if we buy Pereira as well. But I think Lingard offers something different. The way he carries the ball and drives from the middle is very different. I think Ben Rama is much more of a wide player. Fornals is much better on the flanks as well. Yeah. Whereas when we play a 4-2-3-1, the middle of the three, Lingard does that job so well because he'll drop in and do some defensive work if he needs to help the midfield too. Yeah. And he's up running beyond as well. His ball carrying and driving at the heart of opposition defenses was so incredible.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I honestly would. Yeah. I'm not so much sure how much of it was down to that his rejuvenation of his career. I think it was a lot of off-field stuff, and I think his head was just in the right space. Like, had he been given the chance at any other club, including Manchester United, I think he could have shown what he's capable of. I think because we don't doubt the talent with Jesse Lingard.
No.
It was just about him being in the right headspace to perform. And I think what Moyes probably did was just build him up and just be like, come on, you know you're as good as you are. He really took to the rest of the... You could tell very much from the off-field stuff and that he really took to the rest of the squad at West Ham well, and they took to him very well, very quickly as well. He probably just felt, you know what, felt at home, felt comfortable, boosted by the manager, and was in the right place to show what he could do. And that's why it all kind of went off for him really well.
Do you feel like he was kind of like the talisman when he was playing in the team?
I definitely kind of got that way. He had a couple of quiet performances, but it probably coincided with the team not playing particularly well as well when Rice was out and what have you. I think Rice is still always head and shoulders the captain of the team.
Yeah.
But he kind of had the superstar element with him, because we don't have a ton of internationals or England internationals, we should say, really. I mean, some of the players that are playing for various European clubs, Fabi's, and he wasn't in the Euros, but he's got Poland caps. We've got the Czech guys, and Fornals has got a couple for Spain, but no one who's really got England caps in a big way or has been in the England squad or what have you. J-Lings has, right? And we're not talking dozens and dozens, but he did start in it was at 2016 he came on and he performed really well for England. So he had that kind of star quality that maybe some of the other squad didn't necessarily have. And the Rasmus has, and Paparazzi and all the rest of it that go with it, you know. So yeah, I think you're right in asking that. I think it's a fair point.
Do you feel like if you do sign Pereira, I think it's an excellent signing. I'd actually love him at Arsenal. I think he'd do a great job with us. Do you think he'd take a similar role as that? I feel Pereira's more of a... I don't usually like using numbers, but he's more of a number 10 than a guy who can play 10 and 8.
Yeah. He's very similar to
He
Ben
won't defend a lot. He won't defend a lot.
He won't. It's very similar to Ben Rama, but I mean, he racked up the FPL points back in the last season, didn't he, Pereira?
Yeah.
No doubting his quality. I'll be interested to see what Moyes is thinking with bringing these players in and what system he's trying to kind of attacking players there, you know? So, yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what he's thinking.
Brilliant. And brilliant segue. Oh, the man knows the itinerary, man. Brilliant segue into my next part, which was, who do you feel? Oh, of course we're going to talk FPL, Suj. Come on.
Yes. You
just rattle through who you want. Before... I'll tell you who I have. I have Antonio in my FPL team because I think with a nice summer break in those absolutely humongous hamstrings, I think he's going to set the season on fire personally. But apart from Antonio, of course, who else do you think could be great choices for the opening 4 or 5 fixtures?
Yeah, I mean, goalkeepers, no, avoid. I was curious to see what price Areola would be dropped into the game. And he's come in at 5 million, and Fabianski's in the game at 5 million. The reality is that I would think Fabianski starts the season,
right? And
maybe Areola will be given some cup games, European games, and what have you. But I think long term, Areola is our future goalkeeper for the next 4, 5, 6 years. I'd like to hope. He had a good season at Fulham, so it's too risky, right? At what point is Moisey thinking that he's going to make that change and transition? And it might even be from game week 1. I couldn't say what he's thinking. So I think with the
who
price
would you start? Who would you start?
Areola.
Yeah,
I'm in a
I agree.
a couple of West Ham chats, and Fabi has been with us for so many seasons and has been so consistent and so good.
Yeah.
And I have all the time in the world for Fabianski.
Yeah,
but his contract's up at the end of next season. He hasn't extended it. He's 34 years old. And he's not the long-term future. You have to be sometimes ruthless in football. So Alec Ferguson was the don of all don managers because he wasn't emotional and he was ruthless. Time to move on. I'd bench Fabi and I'd play Areola. He's the future now, and he's good enough, and he's proven he's good enough in the Premier League. And it feels a bit harsh on Fabi, like to be benched when he hasn't done anything to deserve losing his place.
True.
But there's a time for everything. So yeah, he definitely needs to move on. Creswell and Soufal are the standouts in defence because of the attacking potential. I personally would go Soufal over Creswell. Creswell picked up a lot of set piece returns last year.
Yeah.
I'm
But
curious.
Is it worth 0.5 more though?
Yeah. Can we score as many goals next season from set pieces as we did this season? I don't see any reason why not with the likes of Bonner, and we've got big, strong guys to attack it. But I'm not convinced that he'll get as many attacking returns.
Okay.
And Soufal bombing up and down that wing, he's just a GI Joe, like ever ready to go up, down, putting in tackles, putting in crosses, doesn't miss a minute as well. He just seems to be so remarkably resilient and fit. So for me, Soufal at 5 million is a good shout for anyone that is interested. The first three, we've got Newcastle first game and Crystal Palace third game. I think there's clean sheet potential in both of those. So I do like the start of the season for West Ham. So I think Soufal is a decent shout if you're interested in a defensive asset. Then we've got Southampton away. So the three of the first four are definitely worth a consideration. I wouldn't touch any of the others, to be honest with you. Even the 4.5s, I wouldn't. There's better 4.5s in the game than ours. The only one to keep an eye on is Masuaku.
Yeah, I was about to ask you.
Just keep an eye on him. If he starts playing and we play with 5 at the back and he's bombing on, then all day long. At 4.5, he's definitely a good asset to have. Up top, there's only one player. That's why I'm jumping to up top. There's only one player. Antonio. And that's it, right? For me, the consideration at the moment is between Wilson and Antonio. The other two strikers I have Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney. I think Tony's price is decent. Watkins first 3, and I'm likely to move Watkins on.
Yep.
So then the other slot, and the one I want to get when I move Watkins on possibly will be Raul Jimenez. I want to keep an eye on him.
Yep.
Keep an eye on him. So it means the other slot, I don't really want to chop and change, to be honest with you. I don't want to have a pre-booked transfer in. So I may go with Wilson over Antonio, although both were injury prone last season. I feel like I have a...
Pick your poison. Pick your poison.
Yeah, I think just Wilson consistency. Wilson's points per game last season, James did the analysis on this on our pod, was way better than anybody else. So Wilson's well over 5 points per game. So I think I'll probably start with Wilson. So I'm not going to start with Antonio, but he has played a lot of the preseason minutes. He was on the pitch again today against Brentford. So, I think Antonio is a decent shout. Midfielders.
Yeah, what about Souček at 6 million? Is he a bit overpriced?
Too expensive.
Yeah.
Too expensive. There's too many other decent options. Jack Harrison, 6 million at Leeds.
Yeah.
You've got
Ismail Assar, maybe. Yeah.
At 6 million is a decent shout. Jared Bowen at 6.5, 141 points. Not bad.
I've seen him on a lot. I've seen him in a lot of Twitter teams, Suj, in the last couple of days. Yeah, a lot of people put him in if they can't get in Antonio.
And it's not a bad shout. It's not a bad shout. I mean, he does take set pieces from one half of the pitch. We'll have to see if he still carries on taking them next season. 14 attacking returns last season.
Not bad.
And Mr. Sub, we call him, because he gets subbed every game he plays. He's a good player, and I think he's definitely worth looking at. I love Fornals, but I don't think he's a particularly good FPL asset. Fornals makes me laugh because every time he scores, he has that kind of shock look on his face of, what, me? I scored? Can you believe it? I scored?
Mama, I did it.
Such a good player. The work he does off in and around defensively, tracking back, he works so hard and he's got all the ability. I think he really could kick on, but whether or not I wouldn't trust him as an FPL asset. And then the only other one is Ben Rama. He scored at Perla today at Brentford in a friendly. And he's again, it felt like he was eased into the team over last season.
Yeah.
And the pressure to score that first goal and get that monkey off his back of scoring his first goal was just like building and building. And he picked up a few assists along the way, some match-winning assists along the way as well. His performances has been fairly decent. I mean, he got 6 assists last season. It's decent for only 1,300 minutes.
Wow.
But just the one goal. But the goal came so late in the season. I just feel like this season might be the one that he's a bit more settled, and he's scored a goal now. He's got assists. He's been involved pre-season. Ben Rama's got all the talent in the world. So he's one to keep an eye on. I think they all sit in this bracket of where do we go? We recorded to plug the pod. Next week we have what we call correspondent week, where we've got all of the correspondents that we have for every single Premier League team. That's all 20 teams, and they know their teams way better than us.
Yep.
But interestingly, we were recording with Ricky Saunders, who's our Tottenham correspondent, and James. So obviously James knows his Spurs as well. And I feel like we're in a similar boat to Spurs because they've got Lucas Moura, Dele Alli, Bergwijn, and all of these guys are 6 or 6.5.
Yeah,
one of the two of them, and then you got Son, who's considerably more, obviously.
Sure.
One of those guys at Spurs, whether it's Lucas or Bergwijn or Lo Celso or Dele, at 6 or 6.5 million is going to be a great asset if they're playing high up top. Same for West Ham. One of these guys could become at 6 or 6.5 million a great asset if they're playing consistently up top and we keep our form from last season. But where do you go to start with? And I think the start of the season isn't the time to be taking risks and taking too many punts. For me, I'm not going to bother. So I'll have none. When I've got Rafinha in there at 6.5 million, I'll take Rafinha and Harrison double up at 6.5 and 6 million over any of these West Ham guys for the start of the season.
Right. So if I came to you and said, okay, Suja, I understand you don't want any assets right now.
I'll take Antonio, no problem. Soufal, no problem.
Okay.
Those are my two that I would say, look, because Soufal is going to play and Antonio is going to play. And I just don't want to take risks on formation or who's going to be starting the season.
Perfect. So to those guys who'll be watching later, it's COTC. If you go onto YouTube, search Planet FPL, it's COTC. They go through all of them. So it's good. Yeah, I made sure I was prepared, pal. So excellent. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, 20 podcasts next week is intense. To be fair, we've recorded 5. We've got 15 to go. But look, like this conversation that we're having now, right? Time just flies. It's just a good conversation with people that understand their clubs. And it's even more interesting with clubs that maybe we don't get under the skin of enough. Everybody knows about City and maybe Liverpool. But you might not know what's going on at Brentford or Watford or Crystal Palace with the change in management and signings and Southampton and all this kind of stuff. So that's what I find fascinating, understanding what's going on a little bit more at some of these clubs as well.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we'll go on to pretty much the final section, which is community questions. So we got a couple here from Stadium of Sports. Jay, cheers, pal. He's the Liverpool correspondent for FPL Juice, whilst I am Arsenal. And
Nice.
Question number 1 is, having listened to the knowledgeable guests you've had on Planet FPL, has this changed how you might approach this season? Will you do anything differently? I'm completely assuming FPL, but you've had a couple of killers on the pod. So has it been...
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. Honestly, we did a week last week, content creator week. So we've tried to theme the weeks throughout the summer. This week we were looking at the EFL in terms of Championship and League One and League Two.
Yep.
And last week we had content creator week. So we had some of the FPL greats on, General, Tom Cantle, Andy, Let's Talk FPL, the boys from Black Box, and one other. Who do we have on? General, Cantle, Let's Talk FPL, Black Box.
Is that it so far, no?
That was 4. There was one other. Who was it?
Did you say Andy already?
Yeah. You're going to check that for me, Ray. And whoever it is.
I'll check it right now.
Kick me in the nuts. It was Late Riser. And that's who I'm going to start with.
Of course it was. Goodness.
With FPL
Prano.
Wire.
Yeah, the wire.
And they all gave me really like. I'll be honest with you. I feel like I don't know myself as an FPL manager still yet. I'm trying to find my way through the game. Prior to the podcast, I haven't got like a 20-year history with FPL and fantasy sports. I didn't play a lot of Championship Manager, which a lot of these guys actually, a lot of their addiction for FPL came from misspent youth with Champ Man or Football Manager or whatever else. So listening to these guys last week was fascinating. I couldn't recommend the pods more because firstly, it was kind of two things: understanding their attitude towards the content they create and what they put out and how they go about trying to do that and what they want to be from a content point of view, which is anyone who wants to get into content, it's interesting for that alone. But then them as FPL managers, all of these guys have got phenomenal records. Phenomenal. Maybe not Tom Cantwell. His is decent, right? But I mean, you're talking about all of the other guys are in the top 5Ks and even like 3-digit ranks, and Pranel's is ridiculous. And so to try and understand what they do and what I do differently and why. And one of the things that came up is when we play these games like Championship Manager or FPL or whatever, we think we know better. We put our threads out. Well, I don't put much out on Twitter, but a lot of people put their stats out on Twitter. They put their threads out on Twitter and so on and so on because we think we know better. But don't be so arrogant as to think that you know better than everybody else all the time. Like sometimes this season, I'm so happy with high ownership at the start of the season. So that's one thing for me, is to not try and be too maverick. It's going to be boring for the listeners, but not try and be too maverick because I think I know better, because I don't. Because there's a reason that the ownership on certain players is so high. There's a reason the template is the template for what have you. Pranel really fascinated me with his playing style because he's quite a bit more maverick.
Yes, he is.
What he taught me was that of his risky captaincy picks, and he analysed them, the successful ones, 90% of the successful ones were in the second half of the season, the first half of the season. Which made me think, right, you stick with the pack, keep it simple, right, and then go rogue when you've got a lot more data and knowledge and understanding of how different teams are playing and they're performing and who's having a good season and who's not. Who'd have thought West Ham last year would have been a good team to go for, or that certain teams would be having awful seasons like Arsenal, for example. Sorry, I'm putting you there, but who'd have thought that at the start of the season? So Maverick picks being later in the season fascinated me. Talking to General, and General's famous for doing the match that they challenge.
Amazing.
And he doesn't watch loads of games on a Saturday or Friday night or whatever. He doesn't know how many points his team's got, nothing. And he'll watch the match of the day challenge and pick it all up and he'll know his points. But then he'll go back and watch the games 2 days later. And he watches the games with a different lens when he's watching them, when he already knows what's happened, because he's not anticipating the points. He's not following his specific FPL players because those are the ones that he's interested in. He's watching it from a much more neutral lens. Whereas I don't know about you, but I watch any game with an FPL lens all the time, and not just 100%. An FPL lens, my own team, 100%. Which then biases my opinion. Even if I'm at West Ham or every other week, I'll know throughout the game that's going on in front of my eyes what's happening with my FPL team, because I like to check. So killing the emotion out of some of that decision making, I found fascinating. So yeah, there's so much I've taken away from those guys. Like, I couldn't thank them enough for coming on the show. But ultimately, you are your own manager in FPL, right? You got to find your own style that works for you, and it takes a little bit of trial and error. But yeah, find what works for you. Are you maverick? Are you not? Do you like watching a lot of games, or do you prefer just relying on stats and data? There's no right or wrong. Just you do you.
Will you maybe adopt one of these approaches that was discussed for this season? So maybe go a little bit out of what you've done in history in FPL?
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty boring at the start of the season. Pretty boring at the start of the season. I mean, Salah was straight in because of his high ownership. Trent straight in. Watkins, and so on. Yeah, I mean, Sanchez in goal. I don't particularly want Sanchez in goal, to be honest with you. I don't feel like that's the keeper I want to have. But I'm not going to go against the herd massively. And what I'll probably do is have a second 4.5 goalkeeper, and maybe try and rotate between the two. I haven't thought about who yet. It'd be nice if Carl Darlow's fit for the start of the season, because he picked up COVID the other week. But yeah, I'm not going to try and second guess. Luke Shaw, ownership's ridiculous. I'll just get him in, to be honest with you, unless we get any clarification that he's not going to start the season.
Then you can just get one. Bissaka, isn't it?
Adopt that. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly. Oh, I think Luca Dean's got high ownership at that price. May go towards him. So yeah.
Fantastic. Question number 2. This can almost be FPL and just normal football, but with having a small squad, which you and I discussed earlier, will the Europa League have a detrimental effect on West Ham assets? Now, you can answer the questions in 2 ways here. I mean, let's start with West Ham as a football team before we go to FPL. How long will it take until Antonio just breaks down?
2 weeks. 2 weeks probably. If that boy plays 38 games,
oh my god,
he's in with every chance of golden boot. No, I'm not joking. If Antonio plays 38 games, he's in with every chance, unless Kane goes to the City, in which case no one's a chance for the golden boot except him. Yeah, I mean, it's a real big risk and consideration to think about. But on the flip side, 2 seasons ago, Wolves were in the Europa League, and Nuno didn't rotate at all.
Nope.
Same team, week in, week out, and they did fine. And actually, the rhythm and consistency of having the same team on Thursdays and Sundays didn't do them any harm at all. So,
good point.
Good point. I don't doubt the fitness of the players. The likes of I mean, the amount of mileage that Souček, Soufal, Rice, and these boys cover in a game is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't doubt the fitness of those guys from a how far can you run fitness as opposed to getting injured fitness. Yeah, it will be interesting to see. We've got depth, a little bit of depth at the back.
Yeah.
Like right back, Ben Johnson could play, Ryan Fredericks could play, so I can see a bit of rotation there. Centre backs, Dawson, Ogbonna, Diop, and another. I think we can rotate those guys, no problem. Masuaku and Creswell on the left could be rotated. So I can see the defense being all right, and any of those guys coming in should be able to cope with the Europa League, especially the early stages. Anyway, that Rice-Souček partnership we've known for a while is a problem if one of them gets injured. Although Mark Noble, try him out a couple more games, finish on a high, lifting the Europa League. Attacking midfielders, we've got depth, but then up top we haven't. But you never know, we might address that. I don't think we need 6 players or whatever. It's just two or three more decent signings.
Good. And
we'll be in a position to give it a good go.
I think that leads excellently to the effect on West Ham assets. Do you think a bit of that will depend on the quality of opposition that you're drawn with in the Europa League?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think my prediction would be that Moisey will rotate the squad. I do think that he will, although there were a few games that we had in the cups last year, and he didn't rotate massively. I think he was going into them with the mindset that we can actually win a cup this year, FA Cup particularly. So let's go for it and win and put a shift in. So I think he probably will rotate a little bit, but I don't think it'll ever be 11, a fresh 11 out for the Europa League and a fresh 11 for the Premier League. I think it'll be in 3s and 4s that he'll rotate the squad to give him a bit of a breather. And it could have an impact in the league. It could definitely have an impact in the league. That's my biggest fear this season. Someone asked me and James on the show the other day, who do you think will finish higher, Spurs or West Ham? I think as it stands right now, we have a better team, first 11. Maybe not as individuals and talent, but as a team, we
as a collective
in a system that works better and what have you, although they have a new manager. But we're not used to Europe. and I think that's why Spurs will have a better season in the league than us.
Okay. So that's absolutely brilliant. So let me sort this. Where are we? Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really, really good conversation to learn about Suj, the football fan, a bit more. I wanted to focus. It still went a bit FPL, but
yeah, no, of course. But it's just good to catch up and chat, and yeah, hopefully a few people will listen in, leave comments, all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah, so of course I'm going to put 1,000 of the links when I release the video, but
yeah,
how can they follow Suj and what you're up to?
Yeah, Twitter at Sujan Shah. I don't tweet a huge amount. I just don't feel like I've got stuff that people want to hear. I don't have anything to say to people.
Don't say that. We just did recording.
James, honestly, my co-host James, he's on at Planet FPL Pod, which will be the main pod show as well. You can find the pod everywhere: Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and what have you. And we're on YouTube, Planet FPL as well. So yeah, you'll find it all there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again. I'll leave all the links just below. Just follow Suj, follow Planet FPL / James on Twitter. Suj, again, thank you so much for joining me today, pal. I hope you enjoyed it.
Very much.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I tag the hell out of you when I'm releasing this. So everyone, have a great evening. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the summer, even though it's raining like hell here in South London. And take care.